This is an audio test of the Leisure Services Committee, 13th of September 2021. Okay, this is a recorder test, testing the levels on the recorder. 1, 1, 2.
Danny, if you're here.
Yes, I'm here, and yep, we've just gone live.
Great stuff, Danny. Good man. So the first item on the agenda is apologies. I haven't been notified of any. Councillor Tennyson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to have to run along to another meeting, so I'm going to have to leave early today. So just apologies in advance for that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McAlinton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor O'Neill, tender apologies. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have any more hands up, so we're happy enough to move on. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest. I'm going to assume that we're just going to follow the normal procedure. Unless anybody has anything now, we will sort of give them as we go. Awesome, Beatty's coming in. Okay, so agenda item 3 is the health and recreation report. So the first item is item 3.1, and it's the Sport NI letter of offer, and I believe Gillian is taking that. Gillian, over to yourself.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Item 3.1, Sport NI letter of offer for Couch to Canoe programme. As part of the community planning process and the delivery of the Get Moving framework, officers submitted a proposal to Sport NI to develop a Couch to Canoe programme of Blackwater Town. I can confirm that a letter of offer has now been received. The recommendation before you tonight is that you give authority to the Strategic Director to accept the letter of offer from Sport NI, which is for £4,800 to deliver this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gillian. So yeah, we have a proposal then from, who was that? Alderman Spears. Alderman Spears proposed. We need a seconder.
I second that.
Councillor McAlinton has seconded.
Okay.
All agreed?
Great.
Great. Okay, we're going to move on. So the next item, item 3.2, it's an item for information, but we are going to go through it because I think there may be a couple of queries in and around it. So I think, Gillian, that's back over to yourself.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So item 3.2, as you said, is just for information. It's the Department for Communities Access and Inclusion programme. So council officers were successful in receiving £107,756 of funding under this programme to deliver 5 projects which are listed in the report. So this will allow council to continue to enhance its facilities and services for people with disabilities.
Thank you, Gillian. I have 3 hands up, so I'm going to take Julie first.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Because my earphone things aren't working. Is that
Not very well.
No. I'll try my best if you can bear with me. This iPad's a disaster. First of all, Gillian, I want to say a huge thank you to you and your team for the work that you put into this. I'm sure it'll come as no surprise to anyone that I am delighted to see this and see these projects coming through, particularly the modular change in place facility. They're worth a lot of money, but they are worth more in heart to the people that need to use these. However, on that point, I make this point on a regular basis, members. I don't think we're necessarily ready for what's coming here. And I want to make this point again. I've made it on numerous occasions in committee and in council. The last time in particular was in council in March, 22nd of March, where I asked that a scoping exercise was done with our facilities, our estates, in particular our parks and recreation sites, so that we are ready for what is coming down the line, all being well. The consultation is live at the minute now. There's a number of problems with that consultation I've been discussing with some officers, and we need to make sure it's right. But with the building control regulation changes that are coming, hopefully that will allay the excuses for implementing the Changing Places Fund, which is available in the other parts of the UK, which we still do not have. When that fund appears, I want our council to be ready, to be shovel ready, as they say, in the facilities that we know we really need to provide these much needed facilities for all age groups. It's not just children, it's not just babies, it's for all age groups. So can I please ask again, with the support of members, that a scoping exercise is done on our major facilities? I've asked for it before, and I want to see this followed through. Thank you, Chair, for indulging me there.
Okay, I'm not sure if any of the officers need to come back, or Gillian, you happy enough to move on to the next? Yeah.
Yes, happy to move on, and also
Okay.
happy to follow up with Councillor Flaherty's suggestion there. Yeah, thank you.
Fair enough. Okay, no worries. Councillor Tennyson. Sorry, Julie, did you want to come back in, or are you happy enough? You're on mute there.
Relatively happy enough, and again, Gillian, I'm so pleased with these facilities in these areas, and like people, I don't think don't realise how much they cost, and they don't realise how much a wheelchair swing costs. But I can't express how important this is to these families, and this is such a good thing we are doing. We need to work on this and build on it in our borough, and be ahead of the rest. This is something we are good at, and we should build on it. So, we can move on all we want, but I've asked for this before about changing places, Chair, and I really want to see some wee bit more substantial movement on it, rather than this ad hoc approach that has developed, as good as it is. And I'm really pleased that these funding streams can be pulled in, but we need to have a coordinated approach.
Okay, fair comments. Yep. Councillor Tennyson, apologies, bit of a false start there, but if you're ready now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. And look, I totally concur with the remarks that Councillor Flaherty has made. I mean, I think, first of all, a review of our facilities to identify sites where these things could go in when funding becomes available absolutely makes sense. And I think, as well as that, there's probably a wee bit of work for us to do as a committee to go away and look at a more formalised policy to prevent this kind of ad hoc approach. But having said that, I really welcome the information that's come forward in this report tonight. I want to thank Gillian for all of the work that's gone into it, particularly the facilities in Gosford and in Lurgan Park. The only quick question in relation to that was, do we have any idea at this stage, Gillian, what the timeline on those facilities might be? Thank you.
Hi, Gillian.
So through the chair, we haven't got specific timelines. We've just really got the letter of offer, but all projects have to be completed, within this financial year. So when we have more details, happy to share that with members. Thank you.
Okay, happy enough, Councillor Tennyson?
Happy enough, Chair. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Spears.
Chair, just want to put on record my appreciation to Gillian and the staff in relation to their activity in this area in securing funding, as is evident in the report. I think our best thanks is due. There's quite a lot of this coming to the centre of the universe, namely down here at Gosford, so that I certainly very much appreciate, and I thank staff for the work they've done on that, and it's certainly a welcome development. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Spears. And finally, Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, just to Gillian and others, thank you for the work that's been done on this. But I just want to go back to the point that Councillor Flaherty's raised, because she raised a very important one, that this report and scope and exercise request back in March. And my concern is that this is just added to another list of things to do. And I don't think that gives it the importance that it actually needs. I think the importance of this issue is that we're talking about the dignity of some of our most vulnerable members of our community. And so I would suggest that as a committee, that we would make this an order of priority in terms of getting site locations, drawings, plans, whatever we need to get done now, that we put resources to it and look across all our facilities, and that we would move into the direction, because this fund might not come. It might be some time off. We know that, but council also have a responsibility then to provide those facilities. And I think we need to be looking at where we can access other public monies for these facilities, but where we need to put our hands in our own pockets to bring our place up to specification as well. So I think rather than just noting, Councillor Flaherty's issue and concerns around this, let's make it a priority, and let's get some firm actions on it and some reporting brought back because given now that it was about 6 months ago that this was originally requested, so we should be somewhere along the line to get something back for the October committee. Thank you.
Okay, fair comment. Are we happy enough, Gillian, that potentially we're going to get a report covering some of the issues raised here tonight by the councillors around us? It does seem like a priority for a number of councillors here.
Yes, Chair. I'm happy to take that forward and bring a report back then to the next committee. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that item is just for noting. 3.3 is the LNDC books update. I have maybe Jonathan or Jill, I'm not sure, want to give a quick update on this and then we can move on.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. This was a request from the June committee that an update be brought back in relation to the books that are currently stored at Loughnane Discovery Centre. The details in the report for members by way of an update, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Not overly expecting any here. Happy to move on. Happy to note. Okay.
Alderman Twible's maybe looking in, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Twible, I do apologise. I didn't see you. You're on mute there. Just if you want to unmute yourself. Sorry, I can't hear you, Alderman Twible. Oh,
okay. Sorry about that. I can't get some of these things to work on my computer, unfortunately. But really just to say that Jonathan arranged that I would have a meeting with the librarian over in Armagh about some of the books that we're talking about here. And I want to put on record my thanks for making that arrangement and satisfying me that this is the right place for these books to be. And I think it's a very, very good arrangement that all of the churches, the various churches with their collections, have their books in the one place. And I think this is a big step forward and I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Alderman Twible. Those comments have been duly noted. We're now going to move on to agenda item 4, which is the community development report. There are 3 items for decision. The first item is around the Chatty Benches initiative, and I'm going to hand over to Alison Clenahan for this report.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Item 4.1 is regarding the Chatty Benches initiative, and the recommendation before you this evening is to approve the progression of the Chatty Benches initiative across the borough in partnership with the ABC Loneliness Network. For those of you who aren't aware, the Chatty Benches initiative is designed to encourage people to come together to chat and connect while seated on specially designated benches. It started with very humble beginnings, but is now a worldwide global initiative. And members may be aware that there are a number of these benches in place across other local authority areas in Northern Ireland. It has been very positively received, and following an approach by a senior social worker in the Southern Trust area, officers from across Community Development Department and Environmental Services Parks Department have been working in partnership with the ABC Loneliness Network to progress this in our area. What we're looking at doing in our own area is initially looking at 4 key areas: Lurgan Park, Solitude Park, Tannickmore Gardens and Armagh Palace Domain, to install our re-image benches in those locations. And we will work closely with the ABC Loneliness Network to progress this. The budget, there is a financial implication budget of £3,000, which we are looking to the DVCFC COVID monies for approval for that this evening. So the recommendation before you, members, this evening is to approve the proposed progression of this initiative across the borough in partnership with our ABC Loneliness Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. I have 3 people wishing to speak. The first one through was Louise, Councillor McKinstry. Apologies.
There we go. No, thanks very much for letting me in there. And yes, I know this had been discussed, I think, by Councillor Lavery at a previous meeting, and I would be only too happy to propose this tonight, that this is progressed through. I know I'm through Lurgan Park a lot. And there's loads of chatty benches in Lurgan Park, but to have one specially designated that people acknowledge what it's for and can use it in the manner that it's put there, I think it's a great idea. So happy to propose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKinstry. I have Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the work that's been done on this issue already, and welcome the suggestion that we would introduce these across the areas. However, not to be parochial, well, no, to be exact, definitely parochial. I think Portadown is one of our main towns with both Eden Villa and Portadown Public Park, and I'm just double checking as to why that hasn't been included, unless there's one already in place. Now, okay, I accept the public park maybe at this stage isn't the place to be putting one of these benches, given the image that it currently has across the community in Portadown, given the issues of antisocial behaviour and other things. But I would certainly be keen to see something potentially in around Eden Villa, and for the purpose being that there are a number of residential care homes facilities, folds along Carrickblacker Road and down onto the Guildford Road that actually could be the place where some of those folks would be walking up and around Eden Villa. So I'm hoping maybe that we could look at including that. It is a small amount of money, and I would hate to see one of our major towns left off when the rest are all included.
Alison, do you want to come back in just on the reason why these 4 locations were chosen?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we liaised just with the park staff, and I suppose we're looking at starting small and maybe working up from there to see how the first few benches went. And they had identified that there were a few key benches in those areas, but more than happy to take on board the suggestion of looking within Portadown and incorporating that within the scheme as well. And I'll liaise with the park staff in that area to identify that and move forward with that. So happy to progress.
Okay.
Chair, I would formally propose that we include Portadown, please. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Cosby. Is this to come back with a costing, or just to come back? You just propose that we include Portadown in the scheme. Is that?
Yeah, I'm proposing we would include Portadown in the scheme. It looks to be about £750 per site, based on my math. So I would propose that we would include Portadown to get one of these chatty benches. Okay, and are you happy to liaise with the officers around location or the Portadown DEA members to be included in any kind of? Yeah, you're happy enough, Alison. Okay, I need a seconder if that's going to be brought forward.
Sure, can I come in, please? Mine's on the same point.
Yes, we'll hold fire just for a second. Councillor Tinsley wants to speak on this, and then we'll.
Well, it's a continuation, because when Cosby started to speak, I thought he beat me to it. That's exactly what I was proposing in the terms of the Eden Villa. But the other location that I had, if that wasn't suitable, was along the Kernan. I'm contacted regularly by dog walkers, and they're mostly of the older generation. And when I saw this, I thought to myself, this actually would be a perfect location along the Kernan towpath. Because they would say that there's nowhere for them to sit and have a rest, between here and the, going out to the lakes. But obviously, it's just, I'm quite content for the second Councillor Cosby's proposal that it's looked at what is the most suitable location. It's all right me thinking where I would like it, but it's where the most suitable location is. So I'm quite content.
So just on a point, just maybe on a point of governance here, if we already have Councillor McKinstry proposing that we accept this, do we just include Councillor Cosby as the seconder with the provision that there's to be an extra one put into Portadown, or does this need to be a totally separate proposal?
If Councillor McKinstry, sorry, Mr. Chairman, if Councillor McKinstry was happy to include Portadown in her proposal, then that would negate the need for any complicated votes or things.
Happy enough.
So in terms of the actual,
happy to second then.
Okay, so then in terms of Councillor Tinsley's comments about the location, I would maybe suggest that Councillor Clanahan, or sorry, Alison, you maybe contact the Portadown DEA members just to kind of run that past them in terms of location. It seems, local knowledge is going to be key in this. So is that fair enough?
Yeah, no, I would certainly follow that up and review that in that manner. That's okay.
Sure, just by way of point, I'm actually a central councillor but Eden Villa just borders my area, so that's why I was thinking of it along the park with the Kernan. So it's just if I could be included in that, just not just the Portadown councillors. Thank you.
Okay. Are members happy with that? I think I have one. Sorry, before we actually draw a conclusion, that we have Alderman Spears wishes to speak on it too.
Mr. Chairman, I understood that we had a resolution that if there was finance involved in anything, it had to go somewhere else before we took a decision of this nature. I'm not against it. I understand the rationale, but I think we have in the past, when we were discussing extra expenditure, I just seek clarity on that from some of the officers.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Maybe if Jonathan or somebody wants to come in and actually clarify if we can bring this through committee, or do we need to refer it?
I'll maybe come in and take that, Chair, if that's okay. In relation to the budget position will not change. This budget funding is subject to inclusion in this year's COVID community response planning. So on the direction of members, we will include the extra bench as discussed. We will also keep it still subject to overall funding being included in the plan. And if there's a difference in that process, then we will come back and update members accordingly.
Okay, I'm happy enough with that.
Okay, thank you. Now I still have two speakers here. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, just a brief point, and I see where Alderman Spears is coming from, but it's my understanding that that's just items under AOB. I think that was the agreement that came through in the governance working group and under the standing order. So it's only any other business items where you can't bring a proposal that would incur extra cost. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Cosby, you want to come back in?
Thank you. And Councillor Baxter is correct. It's standing order 14 at the bottom of page 9.
There you go. Okay, so if we're happy enough, I've got a proposer, a seconder. Are all the members agreed? Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. 4.2, I think, I'm not sure, maybe this is yourself again, Alison. It's the public consultation response.
Or maybe in this one, there's no need for the report to be presented if members are happy with the recommendation.
Fair point. It is a decision item. It's fairly straightforward. I think it has been discussed at length. Do members wish to raise any questions? Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, just a brief one. I've no issue at all with the response. It's just when I read unless I'm reading it wrong, the consultation is running for 8-week period from Wednesday 7th of July. All responses must be in by the 6th of September. So are we agreeing to this retrospectively? Because I would have an issue with that probably.
No, it was this. Sorry, I'll come back through the chair. It has been submitted to meet the deadline subject to this this approval.
Okay.
Mr. Baxter, are you happy with that, or do you need more clarity?
I am, but then does that have to be subject to ratification with full council? I know it's a small issue, but
no, that is correct. It is subject to decision this evening and ratification by full council. And if there's an issue with the consultation response, it will be addressed at that. So if there's any issue at all with what's in the consultation response, we will take that up and amend that with the error.
Listen, happy enough. Whether it's just a matter of process, just for clarity. I'm happy enough. Thank you.
Okay, so is that a proposal that we accept that, Councillor Baxter?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Spears. Thank you. All agreed? Yeah, Councillor Nelson, do you have your hand up on that matter, or no?
The next matter, Chair.
That was quick. Okay, item 4.3 is an update around the defibrillator scheme. So I am going to hand over to, I think, is Alison taking this one? Yeah, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an update on a decision item, members, regarding a proposed defibrillator scheme. And the recommendation before you tonight is that members approve the proposed approach to the development and delivery of a programme of community support. Members will be aware that it was previously agreed that officers would explore the potential for a defibrillator scheme whilst undertaking an audit of the current provision and considering training needs, and provide an update report to committee, which you have before you this evening. In order to facilitate this, an officer working group was set up with representation from officers across both community development and health and recreation to discuss the potential. And this group is continuing to meet to progress a number of the elements, both internally and externally, which have arisen. The internal considerations that are being considered include the registration of council-owned AEDs on the NIAS circuit, as well as identification of supporting guardians. And I'm pleased to advise that 47 supporting guardians are now in place for all 47 devices across council. Along with that, internally, we have been looking at the issue of awareness raising amongst staff with regards to training for AEDs and CPR, as well as training across the organisation. And I'm aware that HR are looking at that at the moment. So externally then, when we were looking at a programme of community support, there are probably two distinct parts, one being awareness raising of the need for groups who have AED devices to register them on the circuit, as that would allow us to undertake an effective audit of where there potentially might be gaps. And this awareness raising has commenced already, I know, with the sporting clubs, and is currently being followed up with the community organisations. And that would be feeding into then our proposed programme of community support, which we hope to develop and roll out over the next few months. That would look at providing funding for the purchase of AED defibrillators, alongside the provision of training, including CPR, and potential funding for the purchase of replacement parts, as well as health checks for those who have existing AEDs. And we anticipate that the delivery timeline of the programme will be between now and the end of March, as that would tie in with the Department for Communities funding parameters. In terms of financial and resource implications, we've identified a £70,000 budget estimated for the programme of community support, along with officer time to develop that. And we're waiting confirmation from the Department for Communities for that funding to be included as part of the community COVID-19 community support programme, which you have before you later this evening. So this evening, members have seeking your approval to approve the proposed approach to the development and delivery of a programme of community support. And with that approval, we will bring back a programme and programme details at the earliest opportunity to yourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison. I have three speakers. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair, and also thank you to Alison, because Alison and her team that worked on this. There was a very short turnaround that members asked of officers, and we've obviously had the summer months and different people on leave, so that we're at this stage already is a real credit to the officers involved in the working group and Alison as well. So I just want to put my thanks on record. That looks absolutely fantastic. It's everything that members asked for and more. Chair and I would be delighted to propose that we move forward in the manner that has been outlined.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Alison, for bringing this forward. I know going back a few months ago, just pre-summer, I think probably it was into May or in June, that I raised this issue in council to see if we could get something moving on this, and I'm pleased to say it's moved as quickly as it has, and I certainly look forward to getting the information out there to the public on where the existing AEDs are, but also then in filling the gaps for the community, because it is about community safety, and I think you've delivered on that, and the working group put in a huge effort. So happy to second that, and whatever members can do, I'm sure we'll all be willing to support the efforts in rolling this out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McNally.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I got to concur with the two previous speakers. It is a job well done to officers, and just how quick they turned this around. This is something that's very close to my own heart. I do be called out regular on first responder calls to where defibrillators may be needed. So I very much welcome this. Just to ask, I do agree with you registering the defibrillators with the ambulance service. Is it fair to say then that these defibrillators will be placed outside buildings? It's just I know a number of our buildings have defibrillators inside them. but they obviously close at a certain time and therefore would not be available to members of the public, which sort of goes against what we're trying to do here. So that's my only really question, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McNally. Alison, are you able to answer that this evening, or is that something you need to come back on?
Thank you, Chair. It's certainly something that we will explore, because there is the issue of portable defibrillators that clubs and community groups would use, as well as the static defibrillators. And as you're aware, it's only really the static ones that can be registered on the circuit with the specific parameters of use on them. So we will look at that as part of the programme of support, because there might be the opportunity to accommodate those depending on the needs that are out there, but we will certainly follow it up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor McNally, yeah.
Yeah, Chairman, and then just a quick follow on. In Alison's presentation, she talked about liaison with community organisations. I am aware that a number of community organisations actually have defibrillators, but what they're missing is these cabinets to put them outside buildings, community buildings that they use. So maybe that is another option that they could explore, because where we want to get to here is cover all the gaps. The public know where they can access them at short notice, and that's going to save lives throughout the borough. So just maybe if the officers would note that, it could be another way of delivering, maybe at a cheaper cost too, because as I say, a lot of community groups have defibrillators.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noted. Councillor McNeil.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison, for that report, just for our support as well in bringing this forward. And just to correct me or advise me, on what way do you hope to get the information out to the whole borough where these defibrillators are all cited? I know that you can go in the shops and all and see a nice advertisement, but in rural areas, it's just doing a networking program to make sure that everybody is aware where they are cited. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have a proposer from Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Cosby. I think we should all be in agreement on. It seems like absolutely great work from yourself, Alison, and from your team. So fair play. So if members are happy to move on, we have an information item next, 4.4, which is the Peach Plus update. I'm not sure, do we need to go through this, or are members happy to note? If there's no questions, I'm going to assume that we're happy to note. Okay. All right. The next agenda item is correspondence, of which I have received none, which then brings us on to agenda item 7, which is any other business. Now, I have received a fairly substantial amount of notification from councillors over the weekend. Some of them do tie in together. So what I'm proposing to do is to bring Councillor Nelson, Councillor Baxter and Councillor McKinstry, if you three want to kind of take it in order, bring your issues regarding the SLLC about the swimming club, and then I'm going to ask Mike Dix to just come in and give us a brief overview, and then at that point we maybe look to set up a clinic to discuss this in more detail. I know there are some sensitivities around what can be discussed in public and what can be discussed in private. So Councillor Nelson, if you want to kick off with your any other business, please.
Thank you, Chair. And like I suppose I am aware there may be a meeting taking place this week. And that, I suppose I'm happy to leave. I had emailed you 2 pieces of any other business with regards to the new leisure centre. And the first one was around families who have paid a lot of money to have family membership within our new facility. We all know how hard it is for families, let alone at this time of the year when we're doing uniform shops. And the families who have spent a lot of money on family membership in good faith cannot get into our centre. And that is not a good news story for our centre. Now, I'm aware that we're not operating at full capacity. I'm aware that COVID has had an impact as well. But what I think we need to do as a council is send a message out to the public that we are aware of the issues, that we are working towards them, that where and when we can sort this within the parameters of COVID and COVID restrictions, that we will. So just some sort of reassurance before I deal with the swimming club issue from officers, and also if the public are tuning in tonight, that we do intend to have a very focused meeting on the SLLC issues this week, because all of us members, officers, this centre is very special to us and we all want it to work. And the best way for it to work is to respond quickly to the issues that members of the public, the ratepayers, the people who built it and paid for it, are bringing to us.
Jonathan, are we happy enough to just deal with that first before we move on?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and certainly we will be looking at this very closely in terms of the clinic meeting that we would hope to have with members. As Councillor Nelson quite rightly says, we are coming through the pandemic, and obviously, that has interrupted our services, but we are looking at pilots in terms of opening our services up wider within South Lake, and we can explore that further with members, maybe at clinic through the summer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cosby, do you want to make a comment on this issue before we move on to Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A very valid point. And I had assumed that you would be inundated with these things, which is why I haven't sent you any. In terms of, I know I've certainly 2 emails in my inbox, families and swimming lessons actually is the other one, and that's excluding the probably roughly about a dozen from the swimming club. But in relation to the COVID restrictions that are in place in the leisure centre, maybe officers just give me a bit of clarity. Are they legislative restrictions, or are they self-imposed restrictions?
Jonathan, is that something we can deal with this evening, or Paul maybe?
Well, I suppose if I can just maybe come back through the chair briefly. Obviously, we are working through the recommendations coming from COVID, and obviously also in terms of our risk assessments associated with all of the activities that we take place at South Lakes. And I think what we are proposing to do, and what we have demonstrated from the last clinic that we had with members, that we are looking at easing those restrictions and allowing more flow and more services within the facility. But we are certainly mindful of ensuring the public safety and also the safety of the staff, to ensure that we minimise interruption through the transfer of the virus in our activities. So it very much is a combination of trying to ensure public safety and also staff safety, which is continually under reviewed. And again, this will be discussed in a lot more detail with members later on, hopefully in our working group.
Councillor Cosby, it maybe doesn't go fully to explain that, but would you be happy, because I honestly feel like the clinic that we had previously was very informative. I think it's something we could all benefit from. Again, it's about a month or so since we had it. I would like to know more information around that, where we are with restrictions, where we've come from and where we plan to go to. I think that's probably the key point, is when we're looking to potentially ease restrictions further. Are you happy with that to be discussed at a future group, or do you want to come back on this tonight?
If I can make comment just briefly, and then happy to come back thereafter for more information, no problem at all. My concern is that what we're doing is the legislation is maybe much more relaxed than what we're allowing in the facility, and then we obviously have our own individual risk assessment response for the site and whatever else. We can go through that in detail. But my concern is that the public don't know, and our communication around this has not been good. So what I would be suggesting is that in terms of setting out a timeline and a plan for getting us back into more relaxed conditions at leisures at SLLC, in terms of allowing more people moving about the building, blah, 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 that needs to be a priority. I'm happy to work through some of that at a clinic with members and officers and whoever else. It might be useful to bring in the person responsible under health and safety for doing the risk assessments and things like that, so that can be looked at and interrogated too. But I think we need to be setting out a very clear timeline and making sure the public messaging on this it is loud and clear, so that the public are under no illusions as to what is happening, and that members also have a full understanding of all of this, because quite honestly, that's what avoids the inbox full of emails, when we can communicate effectively with the public.
Okay, comments duly noted. I think it's a fair comment to make that it is a very difficult balance to strike for officers around staff safety and trying to minimize the likelihood of staff being out through close contacts and stuff. So I think it's fair to say it's not an easy thing, or it's not going to be easy to balance. So I think a clinic, I honestly do believe that we need more time to drill down into these issues and for us as members to get a better understand, because so many times we end up being the people who are contacted first by constituents around these problems. So the more informed we are about them, the more likely we can actually deal with them. Councillor Tinsley, you wanted to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and totally concur. The last group, working group we had, or the last clinic, as you call it, was very, very useful. The one thing that I'm concerned about is, Chair, that we have COVID restrictions, and that's what we're saying a lot of these issues are evolving from. But I feel that we started to reduce the restrictions and it has snowballed all of these problems. And my concern is that as we're rightly so lifting the restrictions, it's actually going to give us even more problems. And I just would like to see at that clinic, how we're going to manage that, how we're going to deal with that, because we're going to get more and more issues, I think, as we rightly so ease the restrictions. So I just want, to sort of make that comment and just have that noted at the, that we can have a timeline or reassurance at that clinic that whenever we do start, then it's we're an operation set up for it. Thank you.
Okay. And I think if we are going to go ahead with the clinic, it would be on members to actually get those questions across to senior staff for them to be adequately dealt with. Councillor Burns, I'm going to let you in, but I'm conscious that Councillor Baxter and Councillor McKinstry actually notified me of AOB, and I don't want to hold back much longer. They have given the notification they want to speak. So Councillor Burns, do you want to come in on that point? You're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, and thank you for letting me in on this subject, because I have had a number of people contact me with regards to this. Are we still, can I ask through you, are we still selling family tickets at the moment? And if so, why are we taking money when we can't provide the service? And that would be my main concern, because we could be reported to trading standards because we're taking money and not providing a service.
Jonathan, I'm not sure, is this something we want to deal with here tonight? I'm just conscious, I don't want this, I'm not taking away from your comment, Councillor Burns. I really do think it's probably better focused, not in AOB, but in a clinic. But Jonathan, do you want to make a comment or direct this to the clinic?
Yeah, look, I think members are raising very important points here this evening, for South Lake and our other leisure facilities. And I would rather, give obviously the opportunity to provide a full and detailed explanation in relation to the methodology that we are applying in relation to our leisure service right across the board. And I think that's probably where that conversation would be best suited, because it'll pick up on a wide range of issues that members have in that particular forum.
Okay, thank you. Now, I have two more hands up and I'm not going to take them at this point. I'm going to bring Councillor Baxter in and then Councillor McKinstry, because they've been given notification, they haven't been given their opportunity to speak yet. And I would urge those members who have indicated to speak, if it's on a separate matter that has been notified, I'll take it. If it's not, and it relates to SLLC, you need to bring it to the clinic, and that's the forum in which we're going to discuss this, because we have got a fairly hefty bill to get through here. So Councillor Baxter, apologies for the delay in getting there.
You're okay, Chair, and obviously this has sparked quite a bit of debate, and I'm sure we're all inundated with the emails and stuff this last couple of days. And I have to say, I'm quite disappointed that those emails were coming back, and we did urge caution the last time when this came to the fore, that all we were doing here was kicking the can down the road. Yes, pandemic in the middle of it all certainly didn't help and convoluted the whole process, but in terms of the issues we're talking about, the other members were talking about there in terms of family swims and all that, I think we can sort that out and drill that down in a clinic, that's fine. It's a few wee niggling issues. When he brought the issues last month, Paul and the guys worked very, very quickly to open up the leisure centre, open up the pool so we didn't have to book and all that, and I think that's helped alleviate some of the problems in terms of capacity, that's fine. In terms of the family swims then, I think Dwyer did give a commitment that night that they would open up parts of the large pool for family swims so that they could use that part. I know that hasn't happened yet, but maybe that's something, again, we can drill down into the clinic. But in this particular issue, I wanted to raise in terms of the swimming camp. Now, we all know what we're talking about here. We did agree, I think, the last time that we would try our best to accommodate everyone who wanted to use this leisure centre and use the pool in particular. Like we sat on the project board, long before the leisure centre was built. When I first came on the council 11 years ago, and meeting after meeting after meeting, we were always told that and this predates a lot of the staff here now. So this isn't it's not a slight staff that we have now in charge. But we were told way back then 10 years ago, when we went through all the plans, that we have all the water that we need and we can accommodate any amount of groups. I think there was something like figures if there was an 80% increase in usage, we could accommodate it in a issue. Now, I don't know how many swimming clubs there is in the borough, but this is one swim group that wants to come and use the swimming pool a couple of mornings a week for a few lanes. Now I go to the pool 3 mornings a week. Half the pool usually is closed. So there's a full 25 by 21 meters or whatever it is, empty. So I'm disappointed. I have to say that this is here tonight. I don't know why this group isn't being accommodated. I know we're talking about expressions of interest and all that other stuff, but this is about the user experience and about customer confidence in this leisure centre. It's something we're all very passionate about. It's a huge building, probably one of the biggest leisure centres, if not the biggest, in Northern Ireland. So look, we understand it's a very, very convoluted and complicated process, but I'm at a loss to know why that this group hasn't been accommodated for a couple of mornings a week when the pool is lying empty. And yeah, there's process, there's expressions of interest, there's all those things, there's the aquatic strategy and all that. But honestly, I don't know if the clinic's the place for this particular issue, but I'd like some answers on this probably even tonight as to why we're in this situation now, when quite clearly this group can be accommodated. I don't think there's many more swim clubs lining up to try and get more swim time, unless it's the existing swim clubs want more swim time. But if you could get some clarity around that, the pool is empty in the mornings. Why can't we just accommodate these people and put this to bed? This has been rumbling on for such a long time now. And yeah, they are a very effective lobby group. We'll all know that. And this isn't about making policy, in terms of lobby groups coming to you. This is about common sense, and it's about sending out a positive message for the leisure centre. So if I could just have some answers, please, as to why that swim camp hasn't been accommodated as yet.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baxter. I know at the start I made reference to some around expression of interest. Some issues can, some issues can't be talked about in the public arena. So I don't want to put officers in a particularly difficult situation. But if someone wants to come back to speak to Councillor Baxter around those issues raised, and then we're going to move on to Councillor McKinstry.
Sorry, through you, Chair, and maybe Mike may want to comment on this as well. My understanding is there has been a process which members have agreed around this, and that will be the way we would be wishing to take it forward, so that there can be an open and fair and transparent process for all groups. But Mike may want to add further on that.
Mike, do you want to hold on until we have all the comments around this in? I know we have another 2 speakers just on this specific issue.
If that's okay with you, Chair, yes, please.
Okay, Councillor McKinstry, and then I'll bring in Councillor Nelson on it, because I know that's the same issue, and we'll allow Mike to come through on it.
Thanks so much for giving me the time to speak on this. And it's a subject that I have spoken on many times before in the South Lake Leisure Board. I have an email here from the 1st of June, and it outlines this expression of interest form with a timeline that it was being drawn together early July, that a decision being reached in August, with expectations successful clubs could start in September. This expression of interest process hasn't been presented to members yet. And my goodness, this group has expressed an interest in swimming in this club when that pool was a car park. They have expressed an interest. They have patiently waited for their turn to get into the water. There is room for them in the water. And, I suppose I am frustrated, because I am getting lobbied by groups, but I think this group has behaved so well. They have not gone on social media. They have bided their time. They have trusted us with this issue. And I just would like some timeline that these that these people can get in the pool, and I would really like some clarity on this tonight, so that I can go back with them and give them some sort of a definitive timeline on that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Nelson, I know you want to speak on the same issue.
Yes, sure. I had put it in as any other business over the weekend, and I suppose there's a couple of things. When I was chair of this committee, this group came to me, and I made all the arguments as to why at that particular time we could not accommodate any additional groups. I explained to that group that when the pool was reopened and stress tested, that we would look back at their request in a fair and an equitable manner. And I think now is absolutely that time. As Councillor McKinstry said, this group has been very patient. We'll get to it in a minute, but there is room in the water and we are denying them that space. In my opinion, we're disenfranchising them. And these are the ratepayers of our borough that helped us put this centre together. We told this group to become a club, and they became a club. They've jumped through hoops to do that. We told them that was the only way they would get space. They've done that. They didn't want to become a club. There were a group of people coached for a long sustained period of time that just wanted to stay together. They didn't need to be an official club, but that's what we told them to do. They've done that. I then told them, hold off until the pool is reopened for a sustained period of time, stress tested, and then we would look again at your request. And I pulled up the AOI report, and I know we want to be careful, but we deem post 5 p.m. as the most sought after spots in our pool. This group is looking in between 6 and 7:30 a.m. and I am being told by councillors that are sitting here tonight that go to the pool in the morning, and by this group that the pool is sitting empty. So, Chair, but that's my commentary. I actually have 4 questions that I feel that could really drill down into this issue, if you would permit me, and if whatever officer's going to answer could just take note, so that we can get those answers before we move into confidential. So the first thing would be, since reopening, has any current group been given more lanes than what we agreed in the timetable? So that's question number 1. Since we've reopened, has there any current group been given more lane time than what we agreed? Has any new group, question number 2, new group been given lane time outside of the timetable that we agreed? Question number 3, between 6 and 7:30 in the morning, is there space? And question number 4, and none of these prejudice any sort of expression of interest process, has any group outside of the one that we all know tonight, and we're not naming them, expressed interest in a permanent slot at that particular time? And Chair, I want tonight the answers, because I believe that there are 4 very simple questions that would not prejudice this process.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nelson. I'm not actually sure if those questions can be answered tonight. Maybe Mike or Jonathan could answer those. I'm not sure whether that can be answered here tonight or whether that's going to have to go into confidential business. I do want to be very, very careful, and I would urge all members to be very careful around the expression of interest stuff. I think it's just delicate process, and we don't want to cause problems for the group who are quite rightly looking for space within our leisure centre. So maybe Jonathan or Mike want to come back on those issues.
If I could just maybe come back to the chair, we probably would need to, and I want to give members the correct information. So I do believe, it would be, those questions would be best put to our aquatics manager at South Lakes. As I said, I don't want to be giving members incorrect information that I personally don't have. So I'm more than happy to come back to all members in the morning with that information, but I certainly wouldn't be able to provide that confidence to members tonight.
Councillor Nelson, are you, well, I don't think you have much choice. I think you're just going to have to go,
Can we just, Chair, just to be clear, because we do have a centre manager with us, and even things like, is there space between 6 and 7:30? I'd imagine that's a pretty simple thing that we would have awareness of. Has any other group made a bid? Surely the people that the bid would be made to are sitting in this meeting tonight. I mean, if we have to wait till the morning, but if we have those answers now, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't share them.
I'm not sure about who else is involved in the AOA. I'm not sure whether that can be talked about, but certainly if there's any comment wants to be made about pool usage and availability, I'm not sure that would be, there shouldn't be any issue around that.
Maybe through the chair, if Paul would maybe know some of those details or not, but again, it may be down to the aquatics manager at South Lakes. But Paul.
Chair, if I can come in, just for a definitive answer, I would look to the aquatics officer. They primarily deal with all that detail. So I have a good idea, but for an actual confirmed definite, I would like to confirm with the aquatics officer, if that's okay.
Okay, Councillor Nelson, we are hopefully, as we draw this to a close, we're going to arrange a very, very quick turnaround for a clinic. So between tomorrow morning and hopefully the clinic Thursday evening or so, we should be able to get you those answers, which will mean you can go back to the group. Are you content that we move on? I do have to come back to you for one other item, but are you happy to pass on with 3 other speakers here waiting to come in behind?
Sure, I'm not happy with the answers, but I am prepared to wait till tomorrow for them.
Okay, fair enough. Alderman Spears. Alderman Spears, you're on mute.
Okay, I just want to emphasize the points that have been made by other speakers. I mean, I have had about 8 or 10 emails in the last 2 or 3 days over the weekend and prior to the weekend in relation to this. I personally speaking wouldn't be fully up to speed in relation to all the issues around the leisure centre. I wasn't on the project board. I haven't all the details at my fingertips, but this is an issue, in all honesty, that does seem to me need to be resolved. I think we're possibly not hearing every part of the picture, and I think that the information that is being portrayed or not being portrayed out there to the community is not helping this process, and we need to be transparent here and get our ducks in a row and get this matter resolved and resolved quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAlinton.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I want to concur with the previous speakers. And I just want to say, I think the way this group has been treated is absolutely a disgrace this last year. All they want is to be treated fairly and equally with like any other group. That being said, as far as the booking process, our groups had they to produce an EOI when booking in another centre?
That's a procedural issue, which I'm hoping one of the officers could maybe clarify.
And just on that, Chair, thank you again. And the irony of all this here, just last week, the Lord Mayor held a reception for 2 groups of swimmers for their achievements over this last month. And those same swimmers can't even get using the pool, their own pool at present, which I think it's a total disgrace.
Okay, comments noted. Councillor McAlinton, just on the procedural question that Councillor McAlinton asked, do we have an officer here who could clarify, is an EOA, you can correct me if I'm wrong, an EOA required for other facilities?
If I can come in, Chair. Yes, that should be the case. And it's the same process that we're doing for our dry side, bookings for our sports hall as well.
Okay, thank you. I know Mike is probably going to end up coming in and clarifying some of the questions we've asked, but in the order we have speakers, unless Mike, do you want to come in before we have the other speakers? No, you're happy enough to take them on. I have Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had emailed Mike, and I appreciate, Mike, you come back to me over the weekend. And at that stage, I had said that I was content with the response that you had provided me with. However, sitting here this evening, I'm getting a bit more information on what is going on or what hasn't actually went on. I suppose it'd be more the case. And I find it absolutely incredible to be sitting here this evening that this issue we know has not blindsided anybody, but this has been on the books for a long time, that we haven't even got an officer present at this meeting and give councillors the answers that they're requesting at this committee meeting. Surely we should have known that this was coming at least early to the middle of last week, and we should have been prepared for it. I find it incredible, and with the greatest respect, that we have the overall centre manager can't give us the information either. And to the 4 simple questions that Councillor Nelson has set up, we can't be told if any of our current or existing groups have been given extra time over and above what they were allocated. We don't know, is there space in the pools in the morning? We can't get a definitive answer or not. And when we hear Councillor Baxter saying that there is space, but the centre manager doesn't know if there is or there isn't, I think that's, deeply unfortunate circumstances. and whether any new groups have been given time. I think it's unfortunate that this cannot and should not be kicked down the road. If we're going to deal with this issue, appreciate anything or any decision that would have come out of this evening would have had to be ratified at full council anyway. And so for a matter of process, that's probably the only place that we're going to get this resolved for a final decision. But the clinic or the follow-up for this, I think, is really important, that it is done before full council and that a paper is prepared and brought to the full council so that members can make a decision on this immediately. Kicking this down the road into October or wherever else is not good enough, given the fact that we're sitting here with a process that has been ongoing from Councillor Nelson was in the chair, and that a process that we did have should have been set out for these groups swimming this month is now delayed with no timeline available to this committee or to members as to whether that will happen next week, next month, or after Christmas. We don't know that either. So it's a bit frustrating coming into this, not having sat in the SLLC board for some years now, that we're in this position and that we don't have the information to hand when members need it the most.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crosby. Councillor Baxter, and then I'm going to move on and bring Mike in.
Yeah, Chair, look, I was just probably going to rehash some of the stuff that Councillor Crosby had said, and Councillor Nelson before. I have to say, I'm flabbergasted that, we knew this was coming tonight and we don't have the answers now. Councillor Crosby did say that I'm telling you the pool's empty in the morning. That's just my own testimony. What I can see in my eyes, I don't have the figures, but I can tell you half the pool's closed in the morning. I've raised it with officers on a few occasions, and whenever we couldn't book swim slots, and that was all sorted out. I don't know if it's still the case. I haven't been there maybe in a week and a half, but certainly the pool was half empty in the mornings, and I know, the answers. I know the answers to at least 3 of Councillor Nelson's questions. So to be told, frankly, that we have directors here, we have transformation directors, we have all sorts of directors here tonight, to be told that they don't have the answers to that, I'm flabbergasted by that. I just want to put that on record, and I don't know where we go from here when we come to council committee meetings. Really we need to come armed with the details on the things that are going to be discussed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baxter. Mike, I'm going to bring you in at this point. Hopefully you can clarify a few issues, and then if we could deal with the issue of the clinic, which I am hoping. I think coming out of these comments tonight, we can all agree that there's a serious amount of issues and there's a lot of serious questions being asked. So I'm hoping the clinic will provide that basis for it. But if you, I'm going to hand over to yourself, Mike, if you want to come in on it.
Okay. Yes, thanks, Chair. I'll deal with some of the issues that have been raised. I think probably not some of the detail necessarily, but if I remind members how we got to where we got here, I'll start back in October 2020, when the SLLC board considered what type of process we should use for allocating additional time slots in the pool for new clubs that were coming in, not the ones that were transferred over from the previous centres, which we said would move over on a like-for-like basis, but any new club that wanted to come in. And that process was agreed to be an expression of interest process in the same way that we were going to apply it for the sports hall for new clubs that wanted to come into the sports hall. So the two systems and two processes were intended to be exactly the same. That decision by the board, when it went to full council and later in that month in October, was discussed very widely and was sent back to the SLC board for further consideration, which happened in November 2020. And then following that discussion, which did include discussion around particular individual groups, we set up a special meeting to follow that in December 2020. We had a wide-ranging discussion there. Members did kick around the idea quite a lot. They looked at every single issue, as they will be able to see if they look back at the minutes, including whether or not we should give them preferential treatment to any particular individual group. And members decided not to do that. They decided to agree that the original process that we put forward with due expression of interest would stand as the policy of the council. That hasn't changed. Members haven't changed their mind on that. That is the same as it is now. And that's the process we've been looking to put in place, obviously, since then. Now, I will acknowledge and accept that that process hasn't happened as quickly as we wished it would. But I think the original report did point out that this process was intended to kick in post-COVID. We are only now coming out of the restrictions that we're in. we've only just started the swimming program for schools, and we're not up to full capacity. So yes, I apologise for us not having moved forward with the expression of interest faster than that, but we are moving in a position where we can actually do that. And I think if we can discuss that in detail at the clinic, then that will help members. In terms of the way we may have treated any particular group, we've not disadvantaged any particular group. We've been very clear with them, with all groups that have spoken to us, that there would be an expression of interest process they would have to apply for. And the intention for that was that it would be open, fair and transparent to everybody. And that, I think, is still a policy. Well, it is still a policy, and it's still a fairest policy for actually allocating slots in the future. Now, in terms of commenting on some of the detail, all I can say is that we've had these questions earlier today, then we would have been able to try and provide answers for them, but obviously we'll do that over tonight and tomorrow morning. So I'm sorry you didn't get the answers to the detailed questions you wanted, but we would ordinarily do that if we had those in advance. So at the end of the day, we have a policy which members agreed some time ago. It was intended to be a post-COVID process. We're trying to bring it forward now as we come out of COVID, but I think members will bear in mind, and I'm not using COVID as an excuse for this, that we still haven't been able to test the pool program properly, and we would like to do that. But at the same time, I don't think there's any reason why we should hold back in terms of the expression of interest process, which would be open to everybody and not just one individual group. So all I would say is that I know members have asked for a further report to go to full council on this particular issue. I would urge you to stick with the policy that you've got and to take this up at the clinic where it can be discussed in more detail in terms of what that process actually looks like.
Okay, thank you, Meg. And I think before I bring another two speakers in, I would just remind anybody with any questions, it is probably the most rewarding way to do it is to get the questions in before the clinic. So if you have anything on your mind after this regarding SLLC, it would be a good idea to fire that over to Meg or Jonathan or Sharon or Paul. Okay, Councillor McNeil.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I've asked this question previously at other clinics, and it's how do we stand in the facilitating the previously booked swimming classes, and how are we faring with booking new classes for swimming lessons? Thank you, Chair.
I'm not sure, is that something dealt with tonight, or do we want to move that to the clinic?
Well, I'm happy enough then, if that's okay.
If I could ask, we can move that to the clinic and we'll add that to the list of questions, so that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor McKinstry, you wanted to come back in?
Thanks for letting me back in, and I suppose I would just like to add, my disappointment. There was an awareness that this was going to be raised tonight, so I am disappointed that the answers aren't forthcoming. And mention was made there of the South Lakes Leisure Centre Board, where we did discuss making this group a special consideration. And this group, in my mind, are a special consideration. I was one of the councillors that really drove that point home. And I feel that this group has met for 12 years. They have a unique way of working in that they don't want to be competitive, which sets them aside from other groups in the area. And they have been meeting for 12 years and have worked together for 12 years with their coach. And we were dissuaded. We were, as a group, almost there with the special consideration for this group. And we were dissuaded on that final decision by the statement that there were other groups waiting to get in through the door. And, this process has gone on for a long time. And knowing the swimming community like I do, they're not going to be sitting for a year without emailing members. And I don't know any other member who has been lobbied by an alternative swimming group looking in to get time in the pool. It hasn't happened with me. Maybe there's other people have other information out there. But, we were of a mind, like you said, to make a special consideration for this group. And we were dissuaded on that one issue alone, I feel. So I would just like a wee bit of reassurance that we did the right thing back then, and not push forward with this group at the time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKinstry. I think on that note, we will draw this to a close. It's fairly clear that there's, and I've said this previously, there's a huge amount of issues here, even from tonight's conversation. So with that in mind, I will probably need agreement around having a clinic. I know she won't thank me for it, but I had asked Hilary to potentially put some dates and times as soon as possible, given the urgency of this around the lobbying group and and the need for all of us to get some answers. So I'm maybe going to ask Hilary, or if we could maybe get an email sent around of potential dates and times as soon as possible, really, to have this clinic. But I would need a proposer and a seconder that we have that clinic, I'm assuming.
Chair.
Chair, happy. I've just raised my hand there. Chair, happy to propose or second whatever is required.
Okay.
Chair, could I also suggest that we have a series of these booked in, because as the restrictions, as I have already alluded to, lift, we're going to have more and more issues, I believe.
Yeah.
So could we perhaps have one of these on a monthly basis between now and even Christmas, which is really only one in October, November and December, that we have already something scheduled in, if that's possible. Thank you.
Yeah, do you know what? It actually crossed my mind, but I was probably going to leave it until the clinic to make that call, because I'm sure there's a number of councillors who aren't from the borough who maybe don't see the value in having these every single month. But I'm in members' hands if you want to make that a proposal, that we have it as soon as possible through Democratic Services, and one each month between now and December. I'm fine with that, or else we can just go ahead and go for the next available slot through yourself, Hilary.
Well, Chair, yes, I'm happy to make that as a proposal, that the next available slot, but then continuing on from that, if we could also have one a month between now and Christmas, I think that would be very, very useful. If I need to make that a proposal, Chair, thank you.
Hilary, are you content with?
Well, through the chair, I can confirm there's an available slot this Thursday evening to deal with this first clinic.
Okay, so maybe if somebody from the department or from Democratic Services could just email that out to the members. I'm sure it won't involve everybody that's on this committee, but that's a really quick turnaround, and I do appreciate that. So hopefully between now and then, members, whatever issues are at the forefront of your mind around this, I would suggest to get the most out of the clinic and to give officers a fair shout at actually gathering the information that we're going to need, because it's a big clinic. There's a lot going on. So whatever issues you have, fire them across in an email, and we'll get the most out of what we can on Thursday night, if that's agreeable. So I think Councillor Nelson, you had proposed and Councillor Tinsley second, or vice versa. So our members agreed with that?
Sure, just by way of going forward then, I didn't get anybody to second my proposal about going forward, or is that included?
Yeah, sorry, does somebody want to? Yeah, Councillor Baxter, he's indicated, so I'm sure members are.
Can I make a selfish request? I have 2-3 meetings on Thursday night, and I'm very keen to go to this. Could I make it the earlier the better?
No guarantees.
So through the chair, there's already a number of committees on this week, Councillor Tinsley. So it's going to be 8 o'clock on Thursday evening.
Well, I have apologies through now. Thanks, Chair.
I have PCSP, I think, on Thursday as well, but this if 8 o'clock's the slot available through Democratic Services, then that's the one we're going to go with. Okay. All right, members, we're going to move on. I know that was a fairly hefty section, but
Sorry, I just had one other item of any other business.
Sorry, my apologies, Councillor Nelson. I promised I would come back to you. Yes, you did notify me on another matter of AOB, and I'm sure this will be a wee bit shorter than the previous one, if possible.
Yes, I can promise you that. So, Chair, it is about the reappearance of our friend, the blue-green algae in Craigavon Lakes. It has reappeared, and I had some people on to me over the weekend with concern, both those that fish in it, but also those that look at the wildlife, such as the otters that we have there. So we were doing a piece of work around the blue-green algae, and the idea was to do some experimental stuff to see what worked and what didn't. Now, we may not have that update this evening, and if we don't, then can I just ask that an officer brings it back to me when they get time to do so?
Yes, fair point. I actually raised this issue myself recently, Councillor Nelson, so I would be asking to be included in that as well. So if one of the officers could come back with an update on that, please. Okay, members, we're now going to move into confidential. So I'm going to need, sorry, Councillor McNeil, you've indicated.
Yes, just that can I get that as well, please?
Well, maybe best that it's actually included for everybody then.
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you, Councillor McNeil. So we're going to move into confidential business. So I'm going to need a proposer and a seconder. If you could just indicate, Councillor Tinsley has proposed, Councillor McNeil has seconded. So I'm just going to read a short note here, members, before we do so. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we'll be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. So if I could just ask Danny to confirm when that has happened. Thank you to all the officers for your reports. Were very, very substantial, and I'm sure questions any members have around those, please get